They brought the human in chains, heavy cuffs locked around his wrists, a steel collar around his neck. 2 alien guards held him by the arms as they entered the grand chamber of the warship. He did not struggle. He did not look around. He simply walked, silent, calm, eyes forward, from her high throne above. Commander Kirill watched him closely. This was the human they had captured near the edge of the Helix Nebula, a supposed spy, a threat to the Empire. But he looked nothing like a threat. He had no armor, no weapon, just skin and silence, still there. Was something in the way he stood tall, unshaken, unbroken. Carol narrowed her eyes. He was supposed to be afraid. Every prisoner was, especially the humans. They always begged, always cried, always shouted about freedom, but not this one. He stood in front of her like a statue, eyes steady, breathing, slow, no fear, no hate, just stillness. The guards shoved him to his knees, but he did not cry out. He looked up straight at Kirill, and for a second, her breath caught in her chest. The room was silent. Officers watched from the corners, waiting for orders, waiting for her to speak. But Kirill said nothing. She stood from her throne, walked down slowly, each step echoing in the chamber, her silver armor shining under the lights, her black hair braided tightly, her blade at her side. She stopped in front of him, studied his face. His skin was scarred, his jaw strong, but his eyes held something she couldn't name. She leaned in. State your name. Didn't answer. She stepped closer. Speak. Still nothing. She reached out, gripped his chin, forced him to look at her. But he was already looking, that same calm stare, that same strange silence, as if he were the one in control, as if this was all part of his plan. Rel released him and turned away. She walked back to the circle of advisors. This is not a normal human, they agreed. No ID found on him, no military implant, no sign of resistance tech. Too easy to capture, too calm, too quiet. The Supreme Empress sent a private message that night. Kirill read it alone, in her quarters. Send in the bait, her best weapon, her top seducer, her beautiful tool of manipulation. Care orders were clear. The human must break. Not with pain, but with desire. Use her body, her voice, her charm. Make him trust. Make him speak. Make him better. Kirill stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her violet eyes were sharp, her face perfect by design. Her people were built to win, built to conquer, built to seduce. She had done this before hundreds of times. Her targets always fell, always gave in, but this time, something felt different. Still, she accepted the mission. The next morning, she entered his cell. He was sitting back straight, hands resting on his knees. He looked up, met her gaze again, that same silence, that same unreadable stare. She smiled, soft, sweet. Good morning. She said no response. She sat across from him, close enough to touch, but didn't spoke about stars, about her world, about his strength. He listened, but said nothing. She stood, leaned over him, whispered things meant to stir the mind, the blood, the heart. Still no reaction. She turned to leave, then paused. Why don't you speak? She asked. Finally his voice came low, clear, calm. Because silence is safer. Then he looked at her and added, and I don't trust Lears. Kirill froze. No one had ever called her that, not to her face, not without fear. She left without another word, but her mind was spinning. That night she skipped the celebration in the hall, didn't join the warriors, didn't drink, didn't dance. Instead she returned to the viewing room through the glass. She watched him in his cell. He sat quietly, eyes closed, breathing steady, like he was meditating or praying or waiting. She watched him for hours, unable to look away. She was supposed to break him, supposed to play a game, but something was wrong. Every time she looked at him, she felt something stir in her chest, something unfamiliar, not lust, not anger, something warm, something dangerous, something human. She touched her chest, where the feeling lived, where it burned softly like a hidden flame. She turned away from the glass, but the feeling didn't fade. Kirill had faced monsters, trained killers, merciless spies. But this man, this quiet human, he made her feel like none of them ever had, and she hated it, because the longer she watched him, the more she realized he was not the one falling into the trap. She was. Kirill didn't sleep that night. She sat alone in the observation chamber, Watching the human through the clear wall, he sat as he always did, silent, still eyes closed, like he wasn't in a prison, like he was waiting for something only he understood. Carol clenched her fists. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was the best. She had broken men stronger than him. She had made enemies beg with just a smile. But Callan didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't care about her tricks, and worst of all, he had said something that stuck in her mind like a scar. "I don't trust liars." Those words echoed again and again. Even now, even in silence, Carol stood up, her pulse unsteady, her thoughts tangled. She left the room without a word. The next morning, she entered the cell again. Callan was standing this time, facing the wall, his hands behind his back. When he heard the door, he didn't turn. She stepped in, closed the door, stood in the quiet space with him. "I brought food," she said. Still no response. Rel placed the tray down, sat beside it, and waited. After a long pause, Callan finally turned. He sat across from her, picked up a piece of fruit, took a bite, then looked at her. "Why are you here again?" he asked. She looked at him, searching his face, trying to understand what made him so calm. "Because I want to know more," she said. "About you, about your people." Callan raised an eyebrow. "Do you, or do you want to know how to destroy us better?" Carol felt the weight of his question. It hit deeper than she expected. "No," she whispered. "Not anymore." Callan watched her, like he was reading more than just her words, like he was reading her soul. He said nothing, so she spoke. She told him about her childhood, about training from the age of 6, about learning to kill before she could love, about being praised only when she won, only when she made others fall. She expected him to mock her, or to look at her with fear, but he didn't. Nodded slowly, then said, "Sounds lonely." Her breath caught again. Just like the first time he looked at her, she wanted to say no, wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because it was true. It was lonely. Every mission, every kill, every hollow victory. She had never told anyone this before, not even herself. Callan leaned back against the wall, his voice softer now. "Do you ever think about stopping, walking away from all of it?" Carol blinked. No one had ever asked her that. Stopping was weakness, leaving was betrayal. But in that moment, she imagined it for the first time in her life. She saw herself outside the ship, standing on grass, feeling the wind, not holding a blade, not watching her back. It felt impossible, but it also felt beautiful. She looked at Callan, and for a brief moment, she hated him because he had put that dream in her mind. And now she couldn't let it go. He stood, picked up the empty tray, and handed it to her. "Thank you for the food," he said. Carol took it. Their hands brushed it. Was just a second, but it was enough. A rush shot through her chest, a wave of heat, of something wild, something dangerous. Callan stepped back, returned to his seat, closed his eyes again. Carol stared at him for a long time, then left. She walked the halls of the ship, but nothing looked the same. The steel walls felt colder. The soldiers felt like shadows. Even her own face in the mirror looked different. Later that night, she stood at the window again. She told herself it was part of the mission to study him, to understand him. But she knew the truth. She wasn't studying. She was remembering his voice, his words, his questions. They haunted her, and in a strange way, they comforted her too. In her dreams that night, she saw Earth, she saw stars, she saw herself reaching out. But what stayed with her most was his voice saying one word: lonely. She woke up in the dark, hand on her chest, heart racing. Carol dressed quickly, walked to the cell quietly. She didn't activate the cameras, didn't tell the guards. She just stood there in the shadows, watching him sleep. He looked peaceful, like he belonged somewhere else, somewhere better. Her fingers curled around the door handle, but she didn't open it because deep inside, she was afraid of what she was feeling, afraid that she wasn't pretending anymore, afraid that the mission was already over and she had lost, not to a blade, not to a soldier, but to a man who never even tried to win. She turned and walked away, but her footsteps were not steady, and her heart was not silent. Carol was changing, and it terrified her because she was not supposed to feel, but now every time she looked at him, she did. The door hissed open. Carol stepped into the corridor leading to the human cell. Her movements were silent. Her heart was not. It had been 3 days since their last real conversation. 3 long days of silence and questions, she told herself. This visit was part of the mission, that she was gathering intel, that she was studying his behavior, but the truth was different. She wanted to hear his voice again. She wanted to understand the strange warmth in her chest, the ache that only grew stronger. When he wasn't near, she keyed in the override. The cell door slid open. Callan was there, sitting in the corner, eyes closed, breathing slow and deep, as if he were meditating or simply waiting for her. He opened his eyes without surprise, looked at her. Then stood no words, just silence. But not an empty one. It was a silence filled with meaning, like he knew why she Kamakarl stepped forward. No armor today, no weapons, just simple clothes and questions she didn't want to answer. She stopped in front of him, too close but didn't move away. Would you like to leave this cell for an hour? She asked. Callan looked at her for a long moment. Why now? Because I want to talk, she said. Somewhere open, somewhere quiet. He nodded once, no hesitation, no smile. Just calm acceptance. Kirill turned and led him through the halls. Guards looked at them, but said nothing. They didn't question her anymore. They knew she answered only to the Supreme Empress. They reached the observation deck, a wide space with a clear view of the stars, endless black sky, scattered lights like ancient memories. Callan walked to the window, stood in silence, hands behind his back. Arel stood beside him. You miss Earth? She asked. Callan nodded. Yes, every day. What do you miss most? Paused, then answered. The sky before sunrise. It turns purple and gold. And there's this moment, right before the sun appears, where everything feels quiet, like the world is holding its breath. Rel looked at him, not the words, but the way he said. Then there was no anger, no pain, just deep longing. What else? He glanced at her. A small smile touched his lips. Music, laughter, the sound of waves, firelight on cold nights, the smell of rain, and being able to choose who you are, not what others make you. Arel felt that last sentence hit her deep. She had never chosen who she was. She had been built, trained, shaped, molded into a perfect weapon. She had never asked for it, never been asked. Do humans love easily? She asked. Callan turned to her. No, but when they do, it is real, and when it breaks, it hurts. Why do it then? Because love reminds us we are all of a foe. We, her throat tight, her hands trembling at her sides. She had been sent to seduce him, to use charm words, temptation. But Callan was doing something far worse to her. He was telling the truth, and the truth was starting to break her. What do you think of me? She asked, her voice lower now, vulnerable, exposed. Callan looked at her for a long time. I think you are brave. I think you are lost, and I think you want to be more than what they made you. Kirill swallowed hard, her breath uneven. He wasn't supposed to say things like that. He wasn't supposed to see her like that. She turned away, looked out at the stars, fought the heat rising behind her eyes. You make it hard to stay the same, she said. Good, Callan replied, because maybe who you are now is not who you were meant to be. They stood in silence again, but this time it felt safe, not like a trap, but like a bridge, like something was being built between them, word by word, breath by breath. Callan reached into his pocket, pulled out a small item, a simple metal charm. No symbols, just smooth steel. I made this from parts in the cell, he said. I don't know why, but it felt right. He held it out to her. Kirill hesitated, then took it. Her fingers touched his for only a second, but it felt like fire under her skin. She closed her hand around the charm, heart pounding. Thank you, she whispered. They returned to the cell in silence, but something was different now. Kirill stood at the door, looked at him one last time before it closed. Good night, she said. Callan nodded, eyes steady. Good night, Kirill, her name. From his lips, soft, true, it echoed in her mind long after she left. Later that night, she lay in her quarters staring at the ceiling. The charm was in her hand, cold at first, then warm, like it had absorbed his presence. She closed her eyes. Images filled her mind. Callan's voice, his stories, the things he missed, the way he looked at her. Without fear, she had come to destroy his loyalty, but he was reshaping hers. No blade, no poison, just kindness, just truth, and something even stronger, hope. The message arrived in the night. Kirill sat in silence as it played on the wall in front of her. The Supreme Empress appeared. Her voice cold and sharp, her expression carved in stone. You have failed to complete the mission. The human has learned nothing. He remains silent, unaffected, unafraid. This cannot continue. Kirill stood at attention, eyes forward, but inside her chest was a storm. The Empress continued, "End the mission, eliminate the prisoner, return home. This is no longer about seduction. This is now about control." The message ended. The screen went dark. Kirill remained still, breath shallow, fingers tight. By her side, she had known this moment would come, but she didn't expect it to feel like this. Like something inside her had been struck with a blade she couldn't see. She dressed in silence, no armor. Just the uniform of her rank, cold fabric tight across her skin. As she walked to the cell, every step felt heavier than the last. She told herself this was just a mission, one of many. She had followed orders before. She had ended lives before. But her hand trembled. Now she reached the door, paused, then opened it slowly. Callan stood at the far end of the room, back to her, hands clasped behind him, gazing at the small screen showing distant stars. Turned when he heard her, met her eyes without fear. "You came early today," he said. Kirill stepped inside, closed the door behind her, said nothing. Callan watched her. Then his gaze shifted, landed on the weapon at her waists. "So it's time," he said quietly. Kirill said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. He nodded once, walked to the center of the room, stopped in front of her. His voice was calm, but his eyes were not. "Are you going to make it quick?" She stared at him. Her fingers touched the hilt of the blade, but she could not lift it. "You should be begging," she whispered. "You should be trying to escape, but I'm not," Callan said, "because I knew this would happen eventually." Kirill looked at him, really looked. There was no anger in him, no hate, only sadness. And something else, something that made her heart ache. "Why don't you hate me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Because I see you," he said, "and I know this isn't who you are. Not anymore." She took a step back, as if his words had struck her harder than any weapon ever could. "You don't know me, do," he said, "and I forgive you. Even if you kill me." Her hands dropped from the weapon. She turned away, covered her face with one hand, and for the first time in years, she felt something warm on her skin. Tears. Callan moved slowly, gently placed a hand on her shoulder. She didn't flinch. "I can't do it," she whispered. "No." She turned, faced him again, her eyes red, but her voice steadier. "If I don't kill you, they will kill us both. Then we run," Callan said. "There has to be a way out." Kirill stared at him. The thought of running, of escaping this place, of choosing her own path, it had always felt like a dream. Now it felt like a possibility. She nodded slowly. "Then I will help you," she said. "But there is no turning back after this. No home, no safety." "I wasn't safe when they caught me," Callan replied, "but I will be free if I'm with you." They stood in silence, something heavy and real between them. Kirill moved quickly, disabled the cameras, silenced the alarms, opened the back panel of the cell. "There's a maintenance tunnel," she said. "It leads to the lower hangar." "How much time do we have until they notice the feed loop?" 10 minutes at most." "Let's move." They crawled through tight passages. The metal walls pulsed with red warning lights. Not yet for them. But soon every sound felt louder, every step more dangerous. They reached the hangar, found a small transport ship, light armor, fast engines, no weapons, perfect for escape. If they could launch in time. Kirill activated the flight system. The controls blinked to life, engines humming low. Callan sat beside her, strapped in, hands ready. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "No," she replied, "but I know what I feel." They looked at each other. No more lies, no more missions, just a choice made together. The engines roared, the ship lifted. Metal gratings shook beneath them. Outside, alarms began to scream. Kirill pushed the throttle. The ship shot forward, lights flashing behind them, but in front of them, only stars. As they broke through the hangar doors, Callan reached over, took her hand. She didn't pull away. "You were sent to seduce me," he said softly. "But I think you were the one who fell." Carol smiled for the first time in years. "It was real." "Maybe I did," she whispered. "I don't want to go back behind them." The empire burned with betrayal. but ahead the universe opened wide. The stolen ship roared through the black, alarms still echoed in Corall's ears. Her hands gripped the controls, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Callan sat beside her, silent, watching her. Every breath they took was a risk, every second they stayed alive was a gift behind them. The alien warship was shrinking into the distance, but the danger was far from over. Carol checked the scanner. "They'll send interceptors soon. She said we have less than 5 minutes, then let's make those minutes." Count Callan replied, "What's the plan?" "There's a debris field ahead, left from an old war. If we make it there, we can hide, and if we don't, then we die trying." The engines pushed harder. The ship vibrated, metal groaning under pressure. But Carol didn't slow down. Her mind raced, not just with numbers and flight paths, but with everything that had led to this moment. She had betrayed her people, abandoned her mission, turned her back on everything she had ever known for him, for the human who looked at her like she mattered, like she was more than just a tool, more than a weapon, and somehow that meant everything. The radar beeped. "Hostiles incoming," Cheryl cursed under her breath. 3 ships fast armed closing in. Callan leaned forward. "Can we outrun them?" "Not in open space," Cheryl answered. "But if we hit the debris field in time, they'll lose visual." She twisted the controls. The ship dove. A sharp turn that nearly threw them from their seats. Laser fire lit up behind them, red bolts tearing past the hull. Cheryl didn't flinch, didn't blink. She was focused. She was still a warrior. But not for the Empire. Not anymore for Callan. She would fight. The debris field appeared ahead, dark and jagged. Twisted remains of old battles, forgotten machines. Floating like ghosts, Cheryl flew straight into the chaos. Metal scraped the sides. The ship shook violently behind them. The pursuers hesitated. They were faster, but not braver. They slowed, afraid of the wreckage. Callan looked back. "We bought time. But not much." Cheryl nodded, breathing hard, her hands trembling slightly. "Now they won't stop," she said. "Not until we're both dead. Then we need to find somewhere they can't follow Earth." Cheryl said softly, "Your people might protect you. What about?" Cheryl paused, looked at him, really looked. "I don't know," she said. "They might see me as a threat, as the enemy." But Callan reached out, took her hand. "Then we'll face them together," he said. Her chest tightened, that same strange warmth. The feeling she had tried to fight, now fully alive. She didn't pull her hand away. They drifted deeper into the debris field, using the wreckage to mask their signal. For now they were safe. Carol leaned back, closed her eyes for a moment. The silence filled the cabin, but it wasn't empty. It was full of thoughts, of questions, of feelings she didn't understand. "Callan broke the silence when you first walked into my cell. I thought I'd have to break you." Cheryl smiled, eyes still closed. "I thought I'd have to seduce you, win you, use you. So what happened? You looked at me like I was real, like I wasn't just another weapon." Callan nodded. "Because you weren't. You still aren't." Cheryl opened her eyes, turned to him. "How do you stay so calm?" she asked. "How do you still trust after everything?" "Because if I stop, then they've won. I survive by choosing hope, even when it hurts." Cheryl looked down at their hands, still joined, still strong. "I was taught to kill hope," she whispered. "To crush it before it grows, then." "Maybe," Callan said, "you were taught wrong." She smiled again, a soft one, tired but true. The scanner beeped again, a signal, small, weak, but Earth-based. Carol tapped the screen. "It's a relay point. We're in range to send a message. We can contact Earth." Carol hesitated. "If we do, they'll know where we are. They'll know you escaped. They might trace the signal." Callan looked at her. "We can't keep running forever. We need help, and I need my people to know the truth." Cheryl nodded. "All right. Let's send the message." They worked together. Callan recorded his voice, explained the situation, told Earth he had escaped with the help of an alien warrior. He didn't say her name, but he said her heart had changed, that she was not like the rest. He asked for mercy, for understanding, for peace. Cheryl listened in silence. Every word he spoke, she felt in her bones. When the message ended, he sent it. Then they waited. Seconds turned into minutes. Then a response came. "Callan, this is Earth Command. We received your message. Stand by for further instruction. Do not attempt to land without clearance." Rel read the rest, her heart sinking. They don't trust me, she said quietly. They don't know you yet, Callan replied. But they will, she looked at him. You really believe that I don't if they don't accept me, she asked. If they see me as a threat, then we'll leave, he said. Find a new place, make a new life with me. Carell looked at him. This strange human who had changed everything. Yes, with you. Outside the stars kept moving. Cold, uncaring, but inside that small ship, a new fire had started, one that no empire could kill. The shuttle moved slowly toward Earth. Stars faded behind them. A blue planet grew larger with every breath. Carell sat silently, her eyes fixed on the window, but her thoughts were far away. Callan spoke softly beside her. Earth will not welcome me easily, you know that. Carell said. Their message was clear. They do not trust me. Callan nodded. I know. But they don't know you yet, and I will make sure they do. Carell looked at him. This man who had become more than a mission, more than a prisoner, more than a stranger. She wanted to believe him, to believe that Earth would accept her, that the world she longed for was waiting. But doubt was a shadow that clung to her skin, cold and heavy. When the shuttle docked, security officers boarded immediately, weapons raised, eyes sharp. They did not lower their guards for Carell. She raised her hands slowly, not in surrender, but in peace. A soldier stepped forward, spoke with a voice sharp as ice. You are the alien who helped a human escape. You are a threat to Earth. You will be detained. Callan stepped beside her, his voice firm. She saved my life. She saved mine and many others. She is not the enemy. The soldiers hesitated, but orders were orders. Carell was led away, through cold halls, under bright lights, into a room full of faces, scientists, officers, leaders. They watched her, judged her, wanted to know what kind of alien could betray her own people. Carell told them everything, about the mission, about Callan, about how she had changed, about the war, about hope. But some faces hardened. They whispered about spies, about traps, about betrayal. Then a message came from the Supreme Empress, sent directly to Earth. Command a pardon if Carell betrayed Callan, if she returned to the Empire, if she crushed the human rebellion. The room went silent, all eyes on her. She stood tall, no fear, no hesitation. I am not your enemy, she said, and I will never betray the one who saved me. Callan reached for her hand, squeezed it gently, a silent promise. But the leaders were not convinced. They gave her a choice: return to the Empire and gain forgiveness, or stay here and face trial as a traitor. Carell's heart pounded. Her mind raced. She thought of her people, her training, the war she had been born into. But she also thought of Callan, of the freedom she tasted, of the love she never expected. The decision was hers, to choose between duty and desire, between the past and the future unknown. She looked at Callan, his eyes full of hope and fear. I choose you, she said quietly, even if it means losing everything. Callan smiled. A light broke through the darkness. For the first time they were united, not by chains or war, but by choice. The trial would come, the battles ahead, but in that moment, nothing else mattered. They were together, and that was enough. The room was chaos. Gunfire echoed, shouts filled the air, soldiers rushed through the halls, and in the middle of it all, Carell fell. She hit the floor hard, pain spreading through her side. But even as the world spun, her eyes found Callan. Was running toward her, shouting her name, fear and fury in his voice. Carell tried to reach for him, to tell him she was alive, but the pain was heavy and the world dimmed. Callan knelt beside her, pressed his hands against the wound, refused to let go. You have to live, he said. I need you, Hera. Carell smiled faintly, weak but real. I'm not done yet. The soldiers around them stopped, watching the human protect the alien warrior, the enemy who had betrayed their own kind. But Callan did not care. He held her whispered promises, and the strength in his voice gave her hope. Slowly she opened her eyes, the pain still there, but fading together. They escaped the chaos, found shelter in the quiet halls. Carell looked at Callan, this man who had once been her prisoner, now her protector, her hope. I didn't plan to love you, she said softly, but I did. Callan smiled, his hand brushing her hair back. Neither of them needed words. Their love was the rebellion, the peace born from war, the impossible made real. News spread fast. Earth Command saw the footage. The alien warrior fighting for a human life. The human refusing to leave her side. Hearts changed, minds opened, and for the first time in years, there was a chance for peace. Carell was no longer a threat, but a symbol, a bridge between worlds. She stood on a beach on Earth, sunset painting the sky. Callan beside her. No armor, no weapons, just two souls free. They looked at each other, smiled, and in that moment, everything changed. A kiss, soft, true, a promise that love could conquer even the deepest war. The stars above, the waves at their feet, the future before them, together.